All right, well, hi everybody, and welcome back to the 59th New York Film Festival. We are so excited to have with us virtually in this case, Céline Sciamma, who was with us a couple years ago, and we had such a special night. It's another special night here at the festival. If you're listening to this or watching this Q&A, you've probably just watched the film at Lincoln Center, or you're catching up with it after the fact. But Céline, welcome back to New York. A little bit different. You're traveling a little differently this year, but welcome back to New York.
Hi, thank you for having me again. Glad to be here.
We are so excited to have you back. Where are you joining us from today?
Paris. This is fake woods, but I think you know.
You're in the woods in Paris, totally fine. Well, why don't we dive into it? We have, maybe 20 minutes to talk about your film. It was so special for us to watch the film as a selection committee earlier this year. And as soon as we watched it, we had a beautiful conversation about it and immediately agreed that we want to bring the film to New York. So we're so happy that you allowed us to share it with our audience in New York. It really means a lot to us. So first, thank you and congratulations on the film.
Thank you.
It certainly couldn't have been an easy task, given all of us in the world have gone through the last 18 months to put another movie out into the world. So maybe that's where we'll start the conversation. Just give us a little context. Tell us where this idea came from and the challenge of getting a movie together and putting it together and having it ready for festivals amidst everything that we've been enduring lately.
Well, the idea for Petite Maman kind of really struck me actually years ago while I was both in the process of promoting My Life as a Zucchini, the animated film by Claude Barras that I'd co-written, and I was in the middle of writing Portrait of a Lady on Fire. And I was doing both those things. And I was very much in that energy of My Life as a Zucchini, which had been a very, very intense experience for me because it was the first time that I actually written with kids in mind, with kids as an audience, kids character for kids. And it actually changed my whole perspective on writing script in a way, because I was being very, very careful for the first time at creating a safe space for fiction. And I think that this philosophy, this ethic of writing for kids kind of helped me write in Portrait of a Lady on Fire in creating a different kind of safe space. And I was pretty much in that energy, in that philosophy when Petite Maman arrived, which basically through this image, I had this image of a tree house in the woods being built by two kids. And reading this image, I was like, oh, obviously one is the mom and one is the daughter, even though they have the same age. And that idea felt revolutionary for myself. I wanted to write it immediately. Portrait of a Lady on Fire was a film I kept kind of giving up writing because it was hard. And I just said, no, I'm going to keep this idea and I'm going to do it after. And I did. I mean, right after the Portrait of a Lady on Fire tour, so February 2020, I got back to France right after the United States release, and I locked myself in for a week and began to write Petite Maman, and I wrote the 10 first scenes. And then lockdown happened, and I stopped writing because this was no writing residence, and opened the script 2 months later and read that first scene that I'd written. That first scene is a kid saying goodbye to several women in a nursing home, and suddenly that scene that felt very, very intimate to me, was talking about my personal history, was charged with a new collective idea, with a new collective feeling. We had been losing a lot of our elders, we had been able to say goodbye, and suddenly it felt like the film, this idea that felt intemporal, that felt like even a personal mythology became urgent, as it was dealing with what we had to deal with, and also because it was thinking a lot about kids and elders, which were the ones who were the most politically and also hit by this pandemic. So So we decided to go for it. I wrote the script in a few weeks in the month of June, and we cast it in the month of July and shot in October during the second lockdown in France, which means that we were going through empty streets to a studio because the film was all shot in a box except for those woods, and we would then have the privilege to see faces take off their mask and look at them. So cinema felt like a privilege, but it also felt like a very, very important thing, like a sacred thing that we were allowed to keep doing. That's a very long answer.
It's a great answer. It's a great answer. Thank you for sharing that context and background, because I can't imagine that when you couldn't have imagined when you conceived of this idea years ago, the context in which it would resonate so deeply and so differently now. So when you picked it up again, you had the idea, you put it away for a bit, you come back to it. Take us back to that moment when you sort of go back to it as you're starting to really write the script for this and kind of really flesh it out. I can only imagine how your mind and your thought process must have been so different going into this and seeing this idea and viewing it in such a different way because of what was happening in the world. How did you, what surprised you about this idea that you had? What challenged you in trying to kind of reconceive how you would express it?
Well, I think it wasn't about the narrative or the staging of the film. I mean, the film is a time-traveling film, so it would allow us to be in any time. And plus, it's a time-traveling film in a timeless film because we don't know when it's set. So it's basically time-traveling that is that should work during the last 50 years regarding the art direction. And so I wrote it, like an eternal tale. But I guess it's production-wise and how it felt to make cinema at that moment that was really, really, really different. And I think the film, I can't tell where it is engraved, where it is really, where is the print of all that in the film? It's everywhere. Because also we felt we were locked down, we were in a bubble, and also mostly, I must say, usually a film is a personal lockdown. It's always a personal lockdown. You forget about everything else. And this time it wasn't the case. So that was the difference. That was that while making it, we were totally always connected and aware of the world. It was not a shooting where you forget about what's happening. It's the opposite. So it's a very different energy. But I don't think it changed anything plot-wise, except believing even more in the healing power of cinema, in the shamanism of cinema, or cinema is also therapeutical tool. Cinema has a sentimental impact and political impact on the world. Yeah, that felt vivid. So I guess it just, believe in what we were doing and its meaning.
I see in your work, I see what you just said is so deeply resonant for me, because I see in your work everything you just said in those last like 3 sentences. Cinema is, it can convey and connect us to sentiment. It can be political. It has so much of what you just expressed. And how do you think about, as a writer, there's a 2-part question to this. You talked earlier about writing for a different audience, writing for a younger audience, perhaps, or being open to a younger audience. But then you also in your work have this, what I would observe is a very strong commitment to everything you were just saying, whether that's political, whether that's to a particular sentiment. So tell me, if you don't mind, if you can sort of open up your process for us, how you balance that, how you navigate that within your own creative self.
Well, I think that it's about layers. I think I consider there is a scene to be shot when it's at the intersection of several things that I need to believe in it, which is several layers of care, actually, And that's why I like to do cinema where I intervene a lot, doing the costume myself. This time, as the set was built, I was really behind every choice. That could be the wallpaper, or the length of the corridor. And this is caring a lot. This is putting a lot of love, of choices in the image. And those choices, they can be objects, they can be attitudes of words or lines, color, lighting. And attitudes are political, in a way. So it's and then it's all these ideas. It's full of ideas, and it's the way those ideas dance or resonate together that makes the scene. So actually, it's a process you can unfold. If we could take each scene, and I could talk of those layers of desires. Some of them are connected, some are not, but all of them added make this kind of thickness, or I don't know, the fact that it's that the images feels wanted, in a way.
Let's talk about one particular image, and actually we'll use the image that's behind you because it's such a striking image from the film, and you're sitting in it right now. And I think you said a minute ago that it was that image of these two young women, these two girls, that was an early image for you. So if you don't, maybe we can use this image behind you as an example of what you were just talking about, and tell us about designing and composing this image that would become, at least for those of us now who have seen the film, an iconic and emblematic image from this film.
Well, for instance, this image is shot in my hometown. So the first layer is the fact that it's a personal one, but it's the first desire. It's looking at some place not because you know it, because then you're going to be able to transform it. Starting with the material, when you're going for such a fictional trail, is a way for me to be sure that you're going to depart from it, and that you're going to build. This is a place where I can imagine that there are two times. I can. It's because they are actually where I'm in this place. So it's my hometown. It's suburbs, 30 kilometers from Paris, but it's not that beautiful. So most of those colors, we brought them. Most of those leaves, we took them from other trees in other places, so that it would be that flamboyant. So that's the two legs. It's a place you have a heart for, but you're going to transform it for cinema. There's this tree house that is built by a professional set designer, but which is definitely, we try to make it as believable, made by kids, but still cinematic. We can see that there's a moon that feels, timeless and could be everywhere. And I was always thinking about Miyazaki, and that this should be woods that Miyazaki would find beautiful. And then there is this little curtain that is kind of makes it like a little theater. And actually, one of the kids is getting out before that, from that little curtain, and she laughs, and she's very much alive, but she looks like a ghost. And there's leaves everywhere, and that's the other little girl who put them to actually please her, and that's why they're both very happy with what they created together, which is poetry. And I don't know what else I can say about this image, because I guess it's an image also where we can feel equality. We can see how they're exactly the same height, even though we don't see their face. So it's an embodiment of sisterhood, friendship, but still there is a troubling idea. It's that it's a mother and a daughter. So it's a very peaceful image with a lot of turmoil, with a lot of possibilities and impossibilities. And it's very playful. And most of these ideas, you don't have to know to actually feel them. And that's why I love doing cinema, is that you can put so many ideas and they will be hidden, but they will be felt.
That's a really strong statement you just said, because it makes me think about, as a filmmaker, as a director, it makes me think about the triggers, the tools you have at your fingertips, or in your conversations with your collaborators, that will sometimes subtly, sometimes in a non-overt way, affect an audience, and sometimes in a direct way, surprise an audience, shock an audience. You're moderating and managing these tools as you're designing what the film is going to be. Maybe help me understand how you thought about the way that an audience would engage with this film. You're making this movie during a lockdown. You don't know what the end result is. We still don't know what the end result is, right? But yet, our audience has just gathered in a theater with 1,000 people in New York City to watch this film. And I'm struck by what you said a minute ago. You're a strong believer in the power of cinema as a collective experience, right? As an experience together, in addition to an experience at home. How you probably watched a lot of movies during the lockdown. So how do you think about this experience of cinema as a collective experience?
Well, I think, of course, I designed the film. I designed the film to be both seen into a crowded room, because that's what we always wish for. But also I designed it thinking about the fact that it would be watched at home. And especially also because I wanted to be watched by kids. And you know what? We can't always count on adults for taking kids to the theater. And the film has more wide shots than my previous film, because I was thinking also about how the screens could be smaller. I think we have to expand what we define as the best, what's an experience of cinema. Otherwise, we won't save cinema. We'll keep saving theaters. We have to, but we'll keep that fight. But we also have to keep saving cinema and not define it by where it is watched. And so for me, the film, I feel fine about the film, and I try to design it as an experience that would work, because the collective experience of a film, the experience of a film is between you and the film. I believe that I'm a child of VCR. As a kid, I couldn't go by myself to cinema. I've had a lot of cinema experience on different screen. I want to defend that, because otherwise we are going to cut ourselves from youth. And if I hadn't had such means to watch cinema, I wouldn't have access to cinema. And this film particularly is built more and more on the idea that I try to design the story to be really a dialogue between the audience and the film, which means that I'm not going to put too much life of the character, for instance. It's not about their emotions. It's not about how they feel about what's happening. It's about how we feel. We don't know much about this family because it's designed like that so that we can connect with it. Though even if we had a good relationship or a bad relationship with our parents, it's still and you don't have to fit in with the film. The film would adapt to you. The film will watch you. So I'm trying to more and more to make film that so you will make you feel seen, but I mean the film is looking at you. And so that it's very much a mutual dialogue, and I think that's cinema. And I think and if you're more and more in the room, that experience will be more intense. It will be collective, because it will mean that it will be several dialogues at the same time and several impacts, and some will be the same, some will not, and this dialogue will be multiplicated. But still, cinema is also about having intimacy with a film, with a moment, and this intimacy is what we're trying to build. So we mustn't forget that. Yes.
Another strong statement. I'm taking this away from our conversation. You're looking at the film, but the film is also looking at you. I really appreciate that sentiment, that statement, because in that also is a lot of what I think we see in your work. I wonder if that's an assessment or a thought that is new to you in your thinking about cinema, or is it something that's been evolving through your work?
I mean, I guess it's something I've always felt, you know, when I'm happy to, when I'm connected to cinema, which means mostly it's not when I do it, you know, mostly I'm connected to cinema through the work of others. And that's what I'm always looking for now officially, you know, what kind of feeling we're looking for. And of course, I want people to love the film, but also I want them to love cinema. You know, I want both things. I'm looking for both things. So I want them to get out of the room saying like, oh, I love the film. But I'd rather they get out of the room saying, thinking like, cinema, you know? And I'm more and more aware that was what was making me alive as a film watcher and film lover. And you know, that's the kind of feeling that I'm trying to animate. And that's the political awareness about you know, what we expect, and also what is the responsibility, of course, of cinema. So it's a process, always as the same as life, of actually acknowledging, admitting what feels good to you and going all the way for it, not being intimidated by convention or yeah, what should be done so that it would look like cinema. And just that feeling. And I must say that this is not something you can do alone. That process is always handed to you by others. And I must say that the confidence that I was given by the audience and the community, the cinephilia that around Portrait of a Lady on Fire has granted me with a strong feeling of keep going. And I'm very grateful that this lesson was, you know, that I could live such a lesson and such I don't know, I don't have the words. I'm French suddenly. I'm shy.
The message is totally clear, Céline, and you said it so well in 2 words: cinema. That's the sentiment that we're hoping for at a festival like this. And you have an open invitation to please return to us here at Lincoln Center in New York to talk again in person on a stage. It will happen again, I know it. But in the meantime, we really appreciate not only your sharing this film with us, thank you for that, but also sharing your time to talk about the film, to talk about yourself and your work. It's really meaningful to us when we can't be together to still have this connection that we can share. So thank you, and congratulations on Petite Maman, and wishing you the best with it.
Thank you very much.